Hello and welcome to Property Matters, a weekly look at all matters property, sponsored by Fairview International Property Consultancy and auctionproperty.co.uk. We're live every Sunday from 10 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and our website propertymatterstv.co.uk. And if you're watching on our website, please leave us a Google review. And if you're watching via social media, please get involved in the conversation via the comment section below. Our email address for any suggested discussion is hello@propertymatterstv.co.uk. And if you don't have time to watch the whole show, you can get the podcast on the move, of course, every week on the Monday at 10 a.m, just a day after the Property Matters live TV show. Finally, we're broadcast across the week on Dilsey Radio as well. And I welcome, of course, our property expert, Joe Joshi. And we're hoping that Bob Singh will join us as well, our mortgage specialist. We believe he's in Dubai. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, he's probably gone to the beach already. This morning he says he might need to top up his tan or something like that. But yeah, Bob Singh is in Dubai, and I'm hoping that he will join us because we have a good subject on mortgages. I think his input would be extremely valuable as he is a qualified mortgage broker. So yeah, looking forward to seeing Bob. But in the meantime, you got me as always.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, actually, that the Bank of England are going to set the interest rate on the 1st of February. So this is this coming week. And the suggestion is there's going to be no change to 5.25, the current rate. But what they're saying is that they reckon there could be a cut as early as May and 3 more cuts over 2024, which will bring it down to, they reckon, 4.25%. And they're predicting that by 2025, the mortgage rate could be as low as 3.5%. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Joe, and what that's going to mean to property, obviously.
I have to say that I'm quite shocked that they are going to take it down to that sort of level. But if they do, that's excellent news. Fantastic for property owners, mortgage owners especially, and of course the first-time buyers. So it's good news all round. But I just can't see that they are going to be able to do that. It took them a while to get it up to the levels that we are at now. And I think at 5.25, I've always felt that they will probably stick around 5%. But I understand that obviously now that it's election year, they are throwing all the toys out at the moment to try and do the best they can in order to win, obviously, the next election. Though the Bank of England is a separate entity, we all know in the background they're all joined hands, and there is a drive together to try and achieve that. I assume the governor of the Bank of England is also thinking about his job going forward. if there's a change in the colour, he may not actually have a job, so he's got to obviously work in tandem with the current incumbents of number 10. So I think all of those things do matter, but of course it's excellent news if they do manage to get it to that level for everybody, not just first-time buyers, but existing homeowners who have actually gone through an absolute battle this year alone just to try and sort of stand still. So I certainly welcome that.
Yeah, so that takes us to our first story, and that is, of course, the rumours that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt will present a spring budget on the 6th of March, with just a month to go. We're looking at the taxes, products and benefits he plans to cut, prune or ditch. So Hunt will provide an update to the Parliament and the public on the state of the UK economy since the autumn statement in November. He will also announce any further economic plans for 24, 25 and beyond. These could include tax cuts, ISA reform, changes to the child benefit threshold and low deposit mortgages. And that's really what we're looking at here, the idea of low deposit mortgages. There are rumours that the Chancellor could introduce government-backed 1% deposit mortgages. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Look, I think again, excellent for the first-time buyers. And if there's ever a time probably to introduce such a package for them, now is it. Primarily because the buy-to-let market was literally killed off. And I know they want to revive some of that because they realise that they've done a lot of damage, but that will take some time to come back. So this window of opportunity that is available for the first-time buyers and perhaps the 99% mortgage could sort of coincide perfectly because it's a buyer's market right now, and this could be their perfect time to step on that first rung of the ladder and having the opportunity to have a lesser deposit to find, so that they can actually get on the property ladder. So all in all, the package could be quite good. Obviously, bearing in mind that the other costs still remain, things like stamp duty and legal costs, etc. So it's relative to what it's going to be, but of course, again, I would say to you that it's a motivator for the community, for the public, for the first-time buyers to join into the property market. And as always, I will tell you once again that they use the property market as a yo-yo, and here we are, perfect example of that yo-yo, of when things are tough for the government or any incumbent, they will start to tinker with the property market, tinker with the rates, tinker with the first-time buyers, without whom there is no real property market.
And they're also talking about, of course, a potential cut to CGT, capital gains tax, which is something that, of course, affects all property. When you make a gain on a property, if it's not your residential property that you live in, then you're going to be paying at CGT at a very high rate. And obviously, it's a very unpopular tax, not least because many people would state, Joe, that we bought the property with money that we'd already paid tax on, so why do we have to be doubly taxed? And of course, CGT and inheritance tax have produced so much revenue for the government in recent years, and seems to be increasing. So he's probably got some room to be able to afford to cut it, but some suggest he might even abolish it. Find that hard to believe. What do you think?
Well, I think the abolition of it will probably be a big challenge, but cutting it is not something that you shouldn't consider. I mean, it's not just the CGT and the capital gains, and also the tax that one has paid on their earnings. What is also you've got to bear in mind is that each time somebody does a property purchase, they pay a huge amount of stamp duty. So it's a double tax whammy for the government. They get stamp duty as well as obviously from a buyer who's investing in property who's already paid their taxes in the first place. I mean, it's becoming a bit of a tax and more tax type of operation here, because again, they see this as free money. People want to buy. Most people don't find it safe to invest in anything else. And look back at all the types of investment. I keep an eye on these things, and they just come up and go out like a yo-yo as well. So people have been looking at things like the new currency that and also of course whatever they can support through the stock market. And you've got to have so much time on your hand, and entrust someone else to deal with that money, that investment. Whereas property has always been something that you could administrate and deal with yourself and have more control over. So property will always be something that most people will continue to want to invest in, whether they have to pay more tax or whether they make a capital gains or whether they actually use it as a pension pot so that it gives them a regular income until such time as they expire. There's a lot of things there, but the fact is that the property part of it becomes something that they are comfortable and conscious of each time, and so it will continue.
Let's just take a look at the story about the higher loan to value. So the government hints at radical plans for 99% mortgages. High loan to value home loans, in this case 99%, could hit the home buying market once again after ministers revealed plans to support first-time buyers. Plans to introduce a scheme in which borrowers could take out 99% mortgages to buy a home are reportedly being considered by the Chancellor for his spring budget on March the 6th, as we've reported. But the announcement has been met with some mixed reaction, with some experts welcoming the development, but others warning that there could be more of a risk to house prices increasing rather than helping more people to buy. And certainly, every time there's been an initiative like a stamp duty holiday, for example, or a reduction in stamp duty, it's led to is prices going up even further, Joe.
Yes, I think that, sorry, I was just intervening with Bob, who says he's not connected on the Chrome where he is, and that's probably because of the sun rays at Dubai are not allowing him to do that. But I've just told him to try and connect on his phone, for a little bit of input. Let's see what he says.
Yeah.
But right. So yes, I mean, going back to your question there, Paul. This is what I said earlier on. As far as the buyers are concerned, this is a great window of opportunity for them, purely because, the buy-to-let people are kind of off the scale at the moment. So, there's no challenge really for the first-time buyers at this moment in time if they can get the borrowing, can get the mortgage funding to buy their property, because the buy-to-let market is now not there. So the problem that they've had in that marketplace to a large extent is that if there's a first-time buyer, there's also a buy-to-let guy, so all competing for the same property. So this fear of prices being pushed up may happen in about 18 months, 2 years' time, depending on how and who comes into power and so forth. But I can't see that in my sort of own layman view, why that should happen now, because there is no time for it. So it is a window that is available for the first-time buyers, and not where prices will increase, and they have a much wider choice.
I don't know where this leaves well, they were talking about the potential for the Help to Buy scheme to come back, but of course, on a Help to Buy mortgage, it's 95% loan to value, isn't it? And that's only on the new build. So they were presumably to get this 99% mortgage is a step up from what the Help to Buy scheme would have been.
Yes, sorry, Paul. 1 second. Send link on phone. I'm just trying to. Can you send that link to Bob on the phone by any chance? As you're
Yes,
there,
of course I can. No problem at all. Yeah, you carry on talking. I'll sort that out.
I'm
Right.
doing two things here. I'm just thinking you and trying to get your answers back, and at the same time talking to Dubai International over there.
Yeah. Actually, he wants it on the phone, does he?
He just
Oh,
said
here he
yes.
is. Yeah, here he is. Okay. Yeah, you carry on, and I'll just sort that out.
Okay, so you're gonna have to. We know that this is live, so it might have to be that you have to raise that question again, because it did throw me there.
Yeah. So I was talking about the Help to Buy scheme being 95%, and this being even more generous, and wonders whether that's going to mean that the Help to Buy will never come back.
Well,
Right.
I mean, it's replacing the Help to Buy, I think, in all honesty, and probably better with the 99%. Though it is said that with all the cost, theoretically, it's probably 95% anyway. But it's a bit like going to the store and saying £1.99 is cheaper than £2 and a penny. So it's the same story here: 99% mortgage as opposed to 100%.
Oh, no, don't you go away on me as well, Joe. Oh, for goodness sake. Right, so we're definitely live this morning. So we're talking about Help to Buy scheme, where we were a moment ago. So
I think we're having technical now.
Yeah, well, that's probably because you're getting messages on your phone London at the same
calling.
time. Yeah, I've sent the link now to your back anyway. Well, I can hear you. I can't see you
frozen.
yet, but yeah, you might as well just log back in again, Joe, if you would, please.
I think I'll have to do a little.
Yeah, do a little re-log in.
Redo. Yeah.
So it's going well today, isn't it, really? So here we are then. We're talking about the Help to Buy scheme. We're hoping that Bob's going to join us as well, because we really wanted Bob to talk to us about the whole mortgage 99% loan to value. And the reason this is so important, Joe, is because back in 2007-8, we had issues with people, in negative equity. So that was an issue for us. Now Bob's online with us, and he can hear us hopefully as well. Bob, the magic of WhatsApp this morning. Hey, are you there, Dubai?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, everyone.
Can we have the votes of the Dubai jury, please?
Is it un point or nil point?
I think it's nil point this morning.
Yeah,
Right, well, it's great to have you here.
But otherwise, fine, thank you.
You jet-setting mortgage maestros, honest to goodness. Lovely to have you here, Bob. We are talking about the government potential plan in the spring budget, March 6th, where Jeremy Hunt is rumoured, we said rumoured, to be producing 99% mortgages. And obviously that's an interesting one for someone like yourself who remembers 2007-8 and all those people who had 100% mortgage back in those days and ended up in negative equity.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the biggest fear, Paul. Morning, Joe. Um, I mean, it's a good idea in thinking, but I think in reality, it's not really going to work that well. 99% mortgages, is a fairly high level of mortgage, and as you say, if prices fall 2%, you're already in negative equity. So it's not the best solution, to be honest. But what they've done is really told us 99%, but not really given us any details either. We think it's going to be new build only, so that's only going to help the new builders, not the sort of second-hand market. And we have no idea on how the affordability is going to work. If it's the same affordability, then it's not really going to be any use at all.
It's interesting they're talking about the Help to Buy scheme and the direct result of that, despite many people taking up the Help to Buy scheme, all that really did was line developers' pockets. And do you think this is going to do the same this time? And inflate prices for that matter too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there'll be a mad rush for these properties. Developers can offload their stock and start building again. But it's not really going to help anybody else, to be honest with you. Just can't see it.
You're talking about here about with the added stamp duty costs, a 99% mortgage will look and feel like a 95% from previous generations. So, and then adding to the fact that saving for a deposit for renting these days is, because of your renting, is almost impossible because obviously rents are so high now. So, adding the fact that it's so difficult to get a deposit together as well, and you've got to pay all the stamp duty and everything, you're not really going to get a 99% mortgage as such.
No. I mean, why bother with 99? Why not make it 100 and let the developer give 1%? I mean, they pay that much to estate agents anyway to sell these things. So just make it 100%, give them extended multiples or make it interest only or something like that, which I alluded to in the press last week. But if the affordability model is not going to change, it's no point whatsoever.
Now they do say in the in the article here that I've got that we're discussing that they've got more stringent assessments will be placed upon them in terms of the affordability and stressing. But the truth of the matter is that that's pretty tight anyway in the first place, isn't it? It's pretty stringent already.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's going to be the same stringent rules applied, it's going to be pointless. They might as well not do this and just bring back Help to Buy. Let people,
Joe, what's your thoughts on the? Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
I said, bring back Help to Buy scheme, but with 1% deposit as opposed to 5% before. So they might as well do that. I mean, if they really want to help. But I think it's another one of their sort of fantastic ideas, which I don't think are going to work.
What do you think, Joe? What that suggestion there, a 1% deposit and a Help to Buy scheme, and not just on new properties?
Yes, I think the thing with this Help to Buy scheme and the 1% and all these gimmicks that they're offering is that it is simply directed at new builds, which is very challenging for the second-hand market, and that's the market that actually helps fuel it, because what happens is those people are then going to be selling to buy-to-let people. Right now, the buy-to-let is as dead as a doornail right at the moment. So the opportunity actually, in my opinion, lies in the second-hand market as opposed to the new market, because those people do want to sell, and those opportunities are great for the first-time buyers to come in and negotiate because it's a buyer's market. But if that product was available for them in that particular zone, then I think that would be very, very helpful to the market. It'd be interesting to see what Bob's thoughts are on it. But for me personally, I think that because it's a challenge, it's put to the new build. The problem with the new build is that it then leaves everything else. It's a bit like leaving the shrapnel behind. All the other properties are left behind. And people think, well, actually, I'm not going to cut the rate, but they've killed the buy-to-let market. So, it's almost better to have the 95% help to buy, or just go to a higher deposit and not have such a stringent situation like Bob said. Maybe do an interest only, and then open the market up to everybody else. I think that if they continue to do what they're going to do, they won't fuel the market, they won't fuel the housing market, but they will fuel first-time buyers, and that's what they're trying to do. But I'm not sure they've actually thought about the actual consequences, as they normally don't, because there's everybody in this. It's not just the developers and new build. And the target for the new build and the developer situation really is about their own personal targets, because they've not been producing enough new homes to cover the required amount they need for both social housing, because obviously new homes means automatically that there is a certain percentage that goes to housing associations, and those housing associations inadvertently are the ones that are producing the properties for the government to provide letting, and for homeless and for all the other targets they do. So, it is all geared for them, if you actually break it down as a government, because they want to reach their target. And the only way they can do that is allow to sell more new properties and allow them to build more new properties.
What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, as Joe said, I mean, let's not forget there's already a 100% scheme out. So if this is going to compete with the Skipton Building Society scheme, where if you're renting, you can get a 100% mortgage, but again, there were restrictions on affordability, and that became a north and south divide product, because it was very difficult to qualify for the rules if you're living in London, where the rents were high, but it was more working well in the north. So again, it needs to be a combination of factors: low deposit, low stamp duty, and higher affordability calculations.
What do we think about this suggestion here that basically it's absolute madness, because the Help to Buy scheme would inflated house prices, and builders increase their prices as the buyers need a lower deposit than they previously did. Inflated new build prices inevitably inflate pre-owned prices. We only needed those prices to continue, and then an increase in rates, and people trying to get out of the Help to Buy Help to Buy scheme rather, would have massive payment increases that apparently they could not afford or want years earlier. So the suggestion that taxpayers' money is being used to fund house purchases again with these schemes, because there's obviously a cost to this. Is it right that the taxpayer should be funding these purchase schemes for people who want to buy properties?
Yeah, again, it could lead to an artificial market, because demand will be very high, because obviously from where I'm sitting, people genuinely, badly, desperately need to get on the property ladder. They don't want to pay these high rents that landlords are now charging. I mean, the house now is fetching £2,300, £2,400 a month on rental, you know, and the mortgage on that property would be far less. So people are desperate to escape. They just need the means. And this scheme, I don't think is going to cut the mustard, because, well, let's see what the details are when it's announced. I don't think it's going to, really be too well received by the market.
They're saying here that we've got more people behind than ever. It was in the news this week on their payments. More repossessions are happening now, as we predicted, and people cancelling other direct debits such as protection insurance and things like that to meet their increased bills. What we don't want is 99% loan-to-value mortgages for renters who are desperate to get out of paying high rents.
Yeah, the arrears market is bad. Loans, secured loans, unsecured loans, mortgages. People are behind on their payments, and it's getting worse and worse. There's a lot of debt in the country. We live on debt, credit cards, whatever, overdrafts, and with these high rates, it's now sort of coming home to roost. Everyone is suffering, and that's going to take some time to rectify itself, because once you're in that debt spiral, it's not easy to get out. So I think this is more of a political ploy. I mean, it's trying to win votes for forthcoming election, I don't think it's really going to be working as a scheme.
Now, what are your thoughts more generally, Bob, about rates at the moment? They're suggesting in the news this week that rates could start falling from May, down 0.25%, and that they will have 3 more cuts during 2024, down to 4.25 from the 5.25 it is now. So nothing's going to move till May. Then we're going to lose 1% over this year, and they could be as low as 3 to 3.5% by the end of next year, 2025. Is that your view, or do you think that's a bit optimistic? What's your thoughts, Bob?
My view is sort of similar. When I see rates being cut before May, I think if the government's going to be really, really serious about helping people in debt, then it needs to cut down mortgage rates as soon as possible, because inflation is still 4%. It didn't come down last month. Went up, in fact, from 3.9 to 4%. So I can see the Bank of England being slightly worried and not really wanting to cut rates, but I think their hand might be forced. Luckily, the forecast is UK is going to avoid a recession, and that's good news. But property market, I think, will just bump along the bottom until rates do start to move. 1% cut by the end of the year, and another 1% in 2025 is certainly on the cards, definitely.
So you're thinking we could be down to something like 3.25 by end of next year?
Yeah, I think so. 3 and a bit, yeah.
And you could argue that that in itself will stimulate the market to some extent, because obviously, borrowing is going to be cheaper.
Yeah, and that's reflected already in the rates. I mean, you can get sub 4% rates on the 5-year fixed market. 10-year markets are not too, dissimilar. Just that the 2-year market's a bit sticky. That's priced higher than the 5-year market. But then, you take your chances. You can either take a 2-year and pay a bit more now, in the hope that you pay less down the line. But most people, are taking 5 years because they're very well priced at the moment, very, very competitive.
It's great to have your views every now and again, Bob, and thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to ask you more generally about mortgages. I know Joe and I are particularly interested to hear, there's a lot of talk, and we wonder whether it is hype at the moment as to the beginning of the year being very strong on the property market. Is that something that you're seeing in mortgage activity?
We have been absolutely inundated. I've come to Dubai for a rest. That's why. I've been doing like 12-hour shifts. It's ballistic. Yeah, it's been the busiest January ever.
Have you any reason as to why? Because borrowing's not cheap at the moment, and there's not a lot of availability.
Yeah, they're not cheap because obviously we saw what happened last year, but rates have come down. There's a lot of optimism in the market that the rates will keep dropping down, and because 5-year markets are very cheap, people aren't wanting to wait and let the prices go ahead again. They want to buy now.
I suppose by the time you actually move into the property and pay your first monthly payment, that probably will be about May, won't it? Thereabouts?
Yeah, thereabouts, yeah. But the 5-year markets, they're not going to change that much. Base rate can come down all it likes, but the market's expecting and factoring in lower long-term rates, and the building societies are offering them. They're not waiting for bank rates to fall. They want market share now, not in May.
There's a lot of talk about getting Jeremy Hunt to try and simplify the ISA market. Bob, I know that's sort of on the outskirts of what you specialise in, but I suspect, bearing in mind you've got property ISAs and lifetime ISAs, you know a little bit about this, but they're suggesting that he should supercharge the lifetime ISA by reducing the government-imposed early withdrawal charge from 25% to 20% and increasing the minimum property price to account for rising house prices. It's also suggested that the overall ISA allowance from 20,000, creating a mechanism to peg the allowance to inflation and removing ISA funds from inheritance tax. A couple of suggestions there, thinking about ISAs. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not licensed in ISAs, but obviously, it's another government incentive to help first-time buyers get on the ladder. The bonus is an absolute plus, but maybe it could be more flexible. It could be, tied into your own plans as opposed to what the government states. But no, I mean, any improvement to the scheme is going to be welcomed.
What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Bob. Thanks for that, Paul, and thanks for your input, Bob. I really appreciate it. I know you're going into Dubai for a rest, and here's us making you work on a Sunday morning. But it's a different kind of work, and we call it charitable and good status to help the people out there that are making decisions, very important decisions, both in mortgages and in property. And I think that it's good to hear that you've had a lot of inquiries in January. I know we messaged each other and earlier on, and you're absolutely inundated. And I think the good thing about that is that they are looking at not just the new builds. It is really helping. And I suppose my plight in the marketplace is that there is great opportunity, especially with flats and so forth, where buy to let people have sort of said, look, I'm going to get out of this now. It's not working for me. And that's the real opportunity in my mind, because they can pick those up at relatively more competitive prices, and go in. And of course, there are scenarios where gifted opportunities also can work with people in the buy-to-let market, because it's not their first home. It is a second home, and in order to get out of that, so that could help the first-time buyers a lot. And there are opportunities that I have got certainly that might assist some people that you've got mortgages for. So we should maybe have a conversation separate on that. But in terms of where the governments are doing and what they're trying to do, they are trying to motivate this, Paul, the best they can. Only because it's as I've said continuously, this is their yo-yo. They just think, well, we'll now bring out all the bits to the property. If you go back some years, it's exactly what Boris did when the pandemic was going on. The only thing he fueled was the property market, and it was the property market that kept everybody. It's not just the buying and the selling of property. You have to bear in mind in property, it is about all the other add-ons that it covers. So the minute that somebody buys a property, or they've got a chance to buy a property, it's all of the other industries that are linked to property. Take it from carpets and DIY and God knows whatever else that one wants to do to upgrade and make things happen. It's every bit of industry that is linked to your home that starts to come alive. And so that's why we are a political yo-yo as a business. And most people, will say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with this, don't want to deal with that." But unfortunately, agencies and auctioneers exist for simply that purpose, because that's the only vehicle available for most people to genuinely get the right advice, guide, and best mortgage possible packages that are available. Paul.
Indeed, indeed. I've got one last story to share with you both before we let you go and enjoy the sunshine there, Bob. And it's just a little bit of fun, really, at the end of today's programme to talk about the fact that I've got the wrong screen there. Beg your pardon. Hang on a moment. Get the right screen. It would help, wouldn't it?
Mystery guest there.
Yeah, we've got. Here we go. Here we go. This is the stun. So this is the one. So there's a section of the Church of Scotland website that suggests the organisation could reinvent itself as an estate agent. Properties for sale page on the Church of Scotland website has everything from plots of land to formal council houses and church buildings ranging from over 40,000 to 400,000. Reverend David Cameron, convener of the Church of Scotland Assembly Trustees, sees it as a sign of the times. Looking at the entry for a church in Kilmarnock, an entire church is up for sale, complete with half modern fitted kitchen and a portfolio of more than 5,000 properties, second only to the National Trust for Scotland. It has a significant volume of units in its portfolio. So basically, they're trying to sell their properties because it's just getting too expensive to keep them going. And interestingly, they're not using an agent. Just wondered what you both thought about that. Start with Bob.
Well, I'll cover that one, Paul. They don't want to use an agent. It's all about money at the end of the day. But trust me, in 40 plus years, I've had loads of people that go down that cycle, and they end up coming back. They do come to their senses eventually that it's not as easy as they think it's going to be. I've had property interrupters for as many years as I've been in the business. A majority of them have come and gone. and the church will eventually come to its senses that, once you get into a private treaty and a promise of all sorts of things from potential buyers, they will realize very soon that it's almost worth paying the agent to take the pain, because even the Right Honourable Reverend David Cameron, no relation, I'm sure, to Lord Cameron now. And he can lord it up as much as he likes wherever he is, but he will end up having to use an agent, that's for sure. Probably an auctioneer, actually, because that's where it's going to be sold.
I suppose I should rephrase the question to you, Bob, and suggest that what's the likelihood of getting a mortgage on a property like that?
That's Bob's answer.
Yeah.
No, the mortgage isn't the issue. I mean, what would you do with it? That's the bigger question. People do buy churches and make lovely apartments out of them, so I'm sure there's a market there somewhere.
Lovely. Okay, well, look, it's been fabulous to have you both on as always. Bob, thank you for interrupting your trip to Dubai to join us this morning and give us your insight on what could be a very interesting election year with the gifts that are coming our way in the property market. So thank you very much indeed for your time today, both of you, and we'll see you soon for another Property Matters.